Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Dora, 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 Jai Krishna Dora, Jai Krishna Dora, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Jai Jagannath, Jai Jagannath, Jai Baladev, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Maharaj ki jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrindi ki. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki. Frames ko host Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakti Vrindi ki. Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhana ki. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki. Navadvip Mayapur Dham ki. Gangamai Yamunamai ki. Bhakti Devi Tulsi Devi ki. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki. Samaveda Bhakti Vrinda ki. Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to some of the devotees. All glories to some of the devotees. All glories to some of the devotees. All glories to the Lord Spirit, Shri Guru and Shri Guru Namaste Narasingaya. Namaste Narasingaya. Pranadana Daine. Ranyakashe Purvakshaha. Shiratankana Kanai. Nishinga Bharato Nishinga. Yato Yato Yamita To Nishinga. Ahir Nishinga Hidaye Nishinga. Narasimha Mahadev Sharanam Prapade. Avakara Kamala Bhare Nakam Abhuta Singam Dalita Hiranya Kashipo Tanu Brahma Samadena Arayuba Jaya Jagadesha Jaya Jagadesha Jaya Jagadesha नरसिंह भगवान की, भक्त प्रहलाद महाराज की, गौर प्रेमानंदे। Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone out there joining us on Zoom as well as YouTube. Welcome to our Sunday feast. Hope you were able to take part in that artik sung by Suhik Ranga Prabhu, one of our temple devotees. We also have a group of devotees that are here at the temple preparing for Janmashtami. So welcome to them as well. Tonight, we have a special guest speaker with us, His Grace Ananda Vilas Prabhu from Harrisburg. Many of you remember Ananda Vilas Prabhu. He participates in our programs from time to time, spoken here at ISKCON of Philadelphia. He's both on our Zoom classes during COVID as well as before then. He's also helped helped us with our Philadelphia Rath Yatra. He's been an active member in that as well. He's a disciple of His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj. And we are, tonight, we're a couple days away from Sri Krishna Janmashtami, and he's here to help us, help prepare our consciousness as we get ready to welcome the appearance of Lord Sri Krishna. So, Ananda Vilas Prabhu, are you there?
I'm here. Hare Krishna. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can hear you. So I'm going to hand it over to you. We have some members on Zoom, it looks like, that are here with us. We also have some on YouTube, and we also we're going to have it live to listen to for the people that are here making garlands and other flower arrangements for Janmashtami. So thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I'm very happy to be here with the devotees of Philadelphia. And Tuesday is Janmashtami, so when His Grace Krishna Katha Prabhu asked me to speak today, we discussed maybe we can speak about how we can prepare our consciousness to get ready for Janmashtami on Tuesday. And so that's the topic that we picked. And I'm hoping that with the blessings of all the Vaishnavas, I can speak something that will help us all get ourselves mentally ready to welcome Lord Sri Krishna into our hearts. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Chalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, in the 4th chapter, text 9, Krishna says, Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tatvatah tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti nameti sojana. Krishna is saying that one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in the material world, but attains to my eternal abode, O Arjun. Very significant. So essentially, only one phrase is needed. Janma karma chame divyam. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving this body, take his birth again in the material world, but attains my eternal abode. So the question is, how can we know the transcendental nature and appearance and activities of Krishna? And that is the secret that Krishna says for us to not have to take birth again. So what kind of consciousness should we cultivate for us to be able to welcome Krishna in our hearts, understand the true nature of his appearance? How does Krishna, who's Aja, unborn, take birth? How is this inconceivable thing happening? So I'm sure there'll be a lot more discussions and topics that the devotees will have on Tuesday as part of Janmashtami. So today we will not focus so much on the actual appearance of Krishna, but maybe some of the events that happened before the appearance of Krishna and what we can learn from that so that we can then prepare our consciousness for the appearance of Lord Krishna. So I will read a little bit from the purport for this text, 4.9, Bhagavad Gita. And I'm going to read the last paragraph, not the whole purport. One can attain the perfect stage of liberation from birth and death simply by knowing the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and there is no other way to achieve this perfection. That there is no alternative means that anyone who does not understand Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead is surely in the mode of ignorance, and consequently he will not attain salvation simply, so to speak, by licking the outer surface of the bottle of honey, or by interpreting the Bhagavad Gita according to mundane scholarship. Such empiric philosophers may assume very important roles in the material world, but they are not necessarily eligible for liberation. Such puffed up mundane scholars have to wait for the causeless mercy of the Lord, of the devotee of the Lord. One should therefore cultivate Krishna consciousness with faith and knowledge, and in this way attain perfection. So the last line of this purport is really the punchline, where Srila Prabhupada is saying, one should therefore cultivate Krishna consciousness with faith and knowledge, and in this way attain perfection. So please notice the emphasis, as Srila Prabhupada says, that cultivate Krishna consciousness with faith and knowledge. It's not faith or knowledge, or just faith, or just knowledge. Because simply cultivating knowledge without faith in Krishna just sometimes may lead us to have pride. Whereas on the other hand, simply having faith but no knowledge may sometimes lead to a situation where faith may be shaken. If situations happen that shake our faith, then our faith may be completely shaken and may fall away. So how do we cultivate a situation where we have faith and knowledge? And so if you read from the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 10th canto, which is where the appearance of the Lord and the activities of the Lord are described, there's a text in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is in the 10th canto, the first chapter, 4th text. And this is spoken by Sukadev Goswami, where he says, Nivritta tarshay rupigiya manat bhavashadat shotra manobhiramat ka uttama shloka gunanuvadat puman virajyeta vina pashubnat. It's a very famous verse. Srila Prabhupada always used to chant this verse, and very famously he chanted it so many times, and he quoted it so many times. Nivritta tarshay rupigiya manat. Nivritta tarshay means this lust for material activities. You can get released from that. Nivritta means to get released from. Tarshay means lust for material activities. Upagiyamana, described or sung, singing the glories of the Lord. Bhava Aushadat, Aushada means medicine, and Bhava Aushada means this material life that we have, this hankering for so many material things, this ocean of material existence that we are in. The Bhava Aushada that we are in. And what is the medicine? Shotra Manobhiramat. Shotra means hearing, the hearing process. Mana abhiramat, and also very pleasing to the mind. Abhiramat means pleasing to the pleasing vibrations. Prabhupada translates as the pleasing vibrations from such glorifications. Ka uttama shloka, guna anuvada. Guna anuvada. Anuvada means, it also means to translate, also means to repeat or describe. Guna anuvada means to describe the glories or the activities. Uttama shloka is another name for the Lord, one who's praised by choice poetry. Ka uttama shloka guna anuvada. Who is that person who will not be interested in glorifying the Supreme Lord? And the answer is given that only such a person who is Pashugna. Pashugna means a butcher, one who kills an animal, or is not interested in purifying his own existence, killing his own soul. And Srila Prabhupada translates this, and I'll read the translation as well. Glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is performed in the Parampara system. That is, it is conveyed from the spiritual master to disciple. Such glorification is relished by those no longer interested in the false, temporary glorification of this cosmic manifestation. Descriptions of the Lord are the right medicine for the conditioned soul undergoing repeated birth and death. Therefore, who will cease hearing such glorification of the Lord except a butcher or one who's killing his own self? This is a very direct and very intense verse that Srila Prabhupada always quoted. But it tells us the importance of hearing. So when we hear about how can we understand the process of Krishna consciousness, how can we understand the birth and activities of Krishna, like we read in the previous verse, right? Janma karma chame divyam. How can we understand yo evam yo veti tattvataha, one who knows this in truth? How can we know this in truth? And the answer is really given in this verse. Uttama shloka gunanuvadat. By hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, the holy name, the paraphernalia of the Lord from devotees. And we will not go through the whole purport, but if you read the purport, and I urge you to read the purport after the class or in your own time, Srila Prabhupada emphasizes hearing from bona fide sources, hearing from the right sources about Krishna Katha. And that is the emphasis. So the process that is given by Srila Prabhupada and emphasized over and over and over again is hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Shunvantam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shramana Kirtana Vedantasto hi Badrani Vidunoti Susadam Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevya Bhagavati Ruttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So how we should hear the Bhagavatam? Should we hear it once in a while? Should we hear it 7 days, Bhagavad Katha once a year? Shukadev Goswami and the Acharyas talk about Nityam Bhagavata Sevya. So one time, this question was asked Srila Prabhupada that those who are grahasthas or having other things, other activities, how can we constantly hear Bhagavatam? And Srila Prabhupada gave many different answers at different times. So again, the context is also important. But one time he said that for those who are engaged in other service, if you sincerely chant your rounds, 16 rounds a day, and if you attend Bhagavatam class, if you hear Bhagavatam class every day, then that for you is Nityam Bhagavata Sevya. So he gives us the understanding that simply by hearing Bhagavatam every day and chanting around sincerely, we actually following Nityam Bhagavata Sevya. Because he understood our limitation. Our limitation was that he understood we could not be hearing the Bhagavatam 24 hours a day. So he gave us the concession that if you chant your rounds sincerely, 16 rounds a day, and hear Bhagavatam every day, for us, it is as good as Nityam Bhagavata Sevya. So that is the process that's given. And if you read from the Srimad Bhagavatam about the appearance of Krishna, it's very, very clear how different personalities prepared themselves for the appearance of Krishna. So the two big contrasts that is very obvious in this beginning of the 10th canto is how Vasudeva and Devaki prepared themselves for the appearance of Lord Shri Krishna, and how Kamsa prepared himself for the appearance of Lord Shri Krishna. So, and again, the Lord is the Lord in everyone's heart. The Supreme Lord is the Lord of Kamsa as well, and he's sitting in Kamsa's heart as well. So it's not like he's only sitting in Vasudeva and Devaki's heart and not in Kamsa's heart. And Krishna says, Samoham sarva bhuteshu. He's equal to everyone. Sarvasya chaham hridaya sannivishto. 15th chapter, 15th verse, Krishna says, I am seated in everyone's heart. So Krishna is very clearly saying that he's in everyone's heart as a super soul, and he's equally disposed to everyone. So he's equally disposed both to Devaki, Vasudeva, and to Kamsa. But the way Kamsa prepares himself for the appearance of Lord Shri Krishna is very different from how Vasudeva and Devaki prepare themselves for the appearance of Lord Shri Krishna. And from this contrast, we can learn how we can prepare ourselves and how we can avoid what kind of situations we can avoid, what kind of mentality we can avoid. And that is the contrast I wanted to draw out. There's another personality whose contrast to the immediate appearance of death that I'll speak about briefly, and that personality is Parikshit Maharaj. So all of you know the story. The story we've heard so many times, and the more we hear, the more enchanting it becomes and more wonderful it becomes. So the story goes like, all of us know the story that it was the day of the marriage ceremony of Vasudeva and Devaki, and Kamsa was the brother of Devaki, his cousin actually. He was her cousin, and he had genuine affection for Devaki. So it's not like he was pretending to have affection. He was actually having genuine affection. Srila Prabhupada writes on the purport as well that in order to mitigate the pain that Devaki would feel leaving her father and her family and going to her husband's house, Kamsa personally escorted Devaki. And not just escorted, he personally took the reins of the chariot that Vasudeva and Devaki were on, and he was personally driving the chariot. There's a significance of this particular point as well, that Kamsa was a prince. So he was not necessarily a chariot driver. And driving a chariot is a sign of taking a humble position, which is why when the Supreme Lord, Lord Shri Krishna, also took the role of a chariot driver for Arjuna. We read about it in the Chaitanya Charitamrita when the South Indian Brahmana in Sri Rangam, when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Sri Rangam, he saw this Brahmana who was sitting outside the temple and reading the Srimad Bhagavad Gita every day, and tears were pouring down his eyes. He was crying. But clearly he was not a very educated person, so he was not reading the Bhagavad Gita very, very correctly. He was mispronouncing, he was reading it wrong. And actually, even a lot of the people around him used to mock him, because they would mock him in various ways because he would mispronounce the words, he would sing the verses incorrectly, and they would mock him. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw this devotee, he was crying, and so he came and asked this devotee, so, my dear Brahmana, clearly you're having trouble reading the Gita. Clearly you're not a highly educated person. So why do you still read the Gita every day in spite of being mocked by so many people that are looking at you? So Brahmana could realize that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not one of the people who's mocking him. He's genuinely asking this question. So the Brahmana responded saying, it's my Guru's order to me to read the Gita every day. Therefore I read it every day. I'm not very educated. You're right. I'm not very educated. I'm not a learned scholar. So I struggle to read. But it is the order of my Guru, so I read it every day. That's why I do it. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked him that I understand that. So it's a very wonderful thing that you're reading because your spiritual master ordered you. But if you don't understand the verses, if you don't understand the meaning, then why are you crying when you read these verses? And the Brahmana replied that you're right. I don't understand the meaning of any of these verses. I don't understand what I'm reading. But I just picture the Supreme Lord, right? Lord says, Matta paratara nanyat kinchadasi dhananjaya. So the Lord of everything, of everyone, he's the Supreme Lord of Lords. Right? When we have a slight amount of opulence, when we are given a slight position in our congregation, or sometimes we're given a slight position in either the family or in a circle, then we start thinking certain jobs are beneath us. We are at a certain level where we should not do jobs that are beneath us. But here's the Supreme Lord of everyone. He's the boss of everybody. And he's taken a menial role of riding the chariot for Arjuna. And it goes a little further to describe the position of a chariot driver. So if you're a chariot driver, especially in a battle, right? So in the thick of battle, it's not possible for Arjun to come down, and so you can imagine a chariot, right? So the chariot driver sits quite a bit below the archer or the warrior on the chariot. These are not transportation chariots; these are battle chariots. So Arjun would be typically a few steps above Krishna with this bow and arrow. Both his hands would be occupied shooting arrows. So the only way he can communicate with the charioteer, with Krishna, would be with his foot. And so the acharyas comment that if Arjun wanted Krishna to go left, he would tap him with his foot on his left shoulder, and if he wanted him to go right, he would tap him on his right shoulder. So typically the charioteer is directed by the foot of the person in the chariot. So Krishna took the position of a chariot driver, a charioteer, and accepted the role of being even kicked by Arjun. So this Brahmana said that when I think about my Lord, my Supreme Lord, taking such a humble position just to serve his devotees, just to reciprocate with his devotees, I cannot but feel overwhelmed that my Lord is so merciful and wants to reciprocate so deeply with his devotees, which is why tears streamed down my eyes. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced this devotee and said that, my dear Prabhu, you're the only person who has understood the Gita. You're the only person who's understood the true meaning of the Gita. So hearing the Gita and understanding the Gita is the point that is being made here, right? So the position of the charioteer, the position that Kamsa was taking, was a genuinely humble position. He was taking a humble position and driving Devaki. And the scene is described, it's a very wonderful scene, like a marriage party. There are hundreds and thousands of other members of that party. There's a lot of musical instruments playing, there are dancers, there's elephants and horses, and the Bhagavatam describes exactly how many elephants and horses are part of that party, and they're all beautifully decorated with gold ornaments. And all of a sudden, there's a prophecy from the sky. There's a unembodied voice that Kamsa hears. He suddenly hears this verse. He hears the statement from the sky that the eighth born child of the woman you're carrying is going to kill you, and you're a fool that you're taking her. You're the person that you have in your chariot, this woman, the eighth born child of this woman is going to kill you. Asyam tvam ashtamo gharbo hantayam bahase buddha. So the voice says, Abudha, oh foolish person. Buddha means intelligent person. Buddha bhava samvita, Krishna says in the 10th chapter, right? Buddha bhava samvita. The intelligent people they exchange the names of Krishna amongst each other. Buddha. Abudha means the opposite of intelligent, foolish. So the voice says, Oh Abudha, asyam tvam ashtamo garbo hantayam. This lady, Asya, ashtamo garbo, ashtama means eighth garbha, eighth pregnancy of this woman, hantayam, will kill you. And as soon as Kamsa heard this, he completely forgot his humility. He completely forgot the point that he was taking a humble position and an intense affection for Devaki and Vasudeva, the fact that he was personally riding the chariot. He forgot everything. And in an instant, his personality transformed into a personality where he took out his sword and was ready to cut off the head of Devaki. So when a demonic person heard that the Lord was going to appear and was going to kill him, immediately his reaction was he wanted to kill Devaki. Now I want to contrast this reaction with the reaction of Parikshit Maharaj. The story comes in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Parikshit Maharaj, he's in the forest, he's hunting, and after hunting, he goes into the hermitage of Shamik Rishi. And Shamik Rishi is practicing austerities and he's in deep trance. He has his eyes closed and he's sitting in his hermitage. And Parikshit Maharaj is afflicted by thirst. He's very thirsty. He hasn't found any water anywhere. So ultimately, after walking around, he finds his hermitage and he comes into the hermitage, expecting that he's the king, that he will be received appropriately and he'll be offered water, if nothing else, right? So our Shastras say that even if you're extremely poor, right, if a guest comes, that is the Vedic culture, that at the very minimum, the guest should be offered a place to sit, some water, and some sweet words. We may not have too many things to offer the guest. We may not be rich. We may not be able to offer a meal sometimes. But the Vedic culture was that even if you go to the house of a very poor person, at the very minimum, they may not offer you a nice couch. They may offer you a mat on the floor. And they may offer you water from an earthen pot. But at the very minimum, they will offer you a place to sit, some cool water, and some sweet words. Welcome. It is said in our Vedic literature, our Shastras, that even if an enemy comes to your house, you should not feel any enmity. You should feel that you're the well-wisher. Even Duryodhan actually followed these principles. So in Kali Yuga, the progression of Kali Yuga is to such an extent that sometimes our behavior is not even on par with that of Duryodhan. So when Duryodhan, during the battle, Krishna realized that Duryodhan has arrows that have been specifically kept for killing the 5 Pandavas. He wanted to get it from Duryodhan. So during the battle, they went to the camp of the Kurus. And it was a custom that during the day the battle would happen. And at night, they would sometimes visit each other's camps to have friendly discussions. So the devotees went to the camp of Duryodhan. And when they went there, Duryodhan welcomed them with sweet words and open arms. And Duryodhan was older than both Krishna and he was older than Arjun. So he asked Arjun, so you've come here, what can I offer you? And Arjun asked him that I'd like those 5 arrows. And Duryodhan gave him. Because if someone asks you something, the culture was that you don't refuse. If you have it, you don't refuse, you give it. So again, the point I'm making is that the culture of offering respect to guests was the culture of the day. So the reason I'm emphasizing the culture is because the actions of Parikshit Maharaj may seem unusual, but if you look at it from the context of the culture of the day, then we may get a slightly better understanding of what Parikshit Maharaj did. So anyway, Parikshit Maharaj was a associate of the Lord and devotee of the Lord. So a lot of times the actions of the devotees of the Lord are not comprehensible. Sometimes they may feel incomprehensible. So anyway, so when Parikshit Maharaj asked for water, and there was no reaction from Swami Krishi. There's absolutely no reaction because he was completely lost in trance. And then Parikshit Maharaj said that if a person, and I'm asking for water, I'm the king here, and you're completely ignoring me. You're as good as a dead person. You're not even alive. And there he sees a dead snake lying on the ground some distance away. So he picks up the dead snake with his bow and he garlands Swami Krishi with that dead snake. It's not a live snake, so it's not going to bite him, but still it's a fairly uncharacteristic action by Parikshit Maharaj. Parikshit Maharaj, great Vaishnava, not something that he would normally do. It was not his normal character to do this. But somehow inspired by the super soul within his heart, and because of the Lord's desire that Srimad Bhagavatam be spoken, Parikshit Maharaj acted in this way anyway. So Swami Krishi's son was a young Brahmana boy. His name was Shringi, and he was playing with his friends nearby. And Shringi was also a fairly effulgent Brahmana, although he was a young Brahmana. He was just a boy. He was fairly effulgent by his Brahmanical teja or power. And he was able to understand that something really unfortunate or untoward has happened with his father. He was able to understand that this Parikshit Maharaj has garlanded my father with a dead snake. He became so upset that he used this newfound Brahmanical power, whatever little power he had, and he cursed Parikshit Maharaj. He said, this person, Parikshit Maharaj, he should be cursed for his actions, to be bitten by a snake bird and die in 7 days. He will be dead in 7 days. Now, Parikshit Maharaj, immediately when he realized he had been cursed, was very repentant. Like, what have I done? This is not my character. Why did I do this? And at the same time, when Shamik Rishi, he realized that his son had cursed Parikshit Maharaj, he also woke up immediately and he lamented, saying, what kind of son is this? For a small offense. So Shamik Rishi never considered this a big offense. He didn't feel that that's right. I mean, well deserved that he got cursed. He was very upset and he was lamenting himself that, why did my son curse this great emperor for such an insignificant offense? But the way Parikshit Maharaj took this curse is very significant in our lives. So Parikshit Maharaj here gets cursed that he'll be killed in 7 days and he's going to lose his life. So he immediately gives up the kingdom, entrusts this to his sons, and then sits on the banks of the Ganga to fast unto death. And that's when Shukadev Goswami comes and speaks the Srimad Bhagavatam. So the contrast is so stark that here Parikshit Maharaj is cursed to die in 7 days. And he could have easily counter-cursed the Brahmana boy. He was a very powerful king. He was a Raja Rishi too. He could have easily countered the curse, or he could have even counter-cursed the Brahmana boy. He did neither. He gracefully accepted the curse as a mercy of the Lord and said, now this is an opportunity for me, and I know for sure I'm going to die in 7 days. So I should use the time to focus my attention on hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. And that's when the Bhagavatam was spoken. On the other hand, Kamsa was cursed to die by the 8th pregnancy of Devaki. So by normal course, right, the 8th pregnancy would at least take 8 years, if not 7 or 8 years. So this Kamsa is cursed to die, or he hears this words from the sky that he's going to be killed by the 8th pregnancy of Devaki. So when he hears that he's going to be killed by the 8th pregnancy, which is 7-8 years away, his immediate reaction is to behead Devaki. Whereas when Parikshit Maharaj hears that he's going to die in 7 days, he immediately accepts it. But that is a stark contrast between how a devotee accepts the will of the Lord and how a demon tries to kill the devotee of the Lord just because they didn't want to accept the situation that they were in. So anyway, so Vasudev now is in a very terrible situation. On the day of his marriage, his wife and the sister of Kamsa is going to be beheaded by Kamsa. So he tries in many different ways to pacify Kamsa. He tries to pacify Kamsa in many ways. Nothing works. Kamsa is not. And so there's a lot of deep philosophy that Vasudev speaks that we may not have time to get into today, but there's a lot of beautiful verses, very, very consistent with all the things that Krishna says in the 2nd chapter, starting from verse 11 through verse 30, the 19 verses where Krishna speaks about the nature of the body and the soul, that you're not the body of the soul. He speaks about the nature, how the soul transmigrates from one body to the other. He speaks all those wonderful verses. Matra sparshasta kante shitoshna sukudukula. Agama apayano nityas tan titikshava bharata. Tan titikshava bharata. He speaks about how we tolerate, because all these things like happiness and distress, heat and cold, or like the coming and going of the summer and winter seasons, they'll keep happening, and we must learn to tolerate. So all these points Vasudev tries to make to plead his case to Kamsa, that please don't kill your sister, because whatever is going to happen inevitably. So why should you act in a wicked way just to protect your life, which is going to eventually go anyway? So anyway, all these wonderful arguments that Vasudev makes are of no avail to Kamsa, because he's determined in what he wants to do. So finally, Vasudeva thinks to himself that right now the objective should be that somehow we should save Devaki. That should be the objective. And he has firm faith in providence. He has firm faith in the Lord. And he's thinking that, the voice in the sky, whatever it's saying is correct. And the Lord will actually come to be my son, eighth son. And he's going to kill Kamsa anyway. So why should I fear? Let me just protect Devaki right now. And he says in the future, Kamsa may be killed even before my sons are born. Or if he has to be killed by my eighth son, that'll happen anyway. So many things are possible. So right now, at this very moment, let me just focus on how I can protect Devaki. Let me not worry about anything else. So he decides to make a promise to Kamsa. And he says, "Oh, Kamsa, I will promise you, you have no danger from Devaki. The voice in the sky didn't say that Devaki will kill you. There's no danger from Devaki. The only danger you have is from her child, her eighth child. So I promise you that every child that we have, I will hand over that child to you." And it's such a wonderful testament to Vasudev's character that even a wicked person like Kamsa was immediately pacified because he knew the value of the word that Vasudeva gave. Vasudeva was such a glorious personality that his another name of Vasudeva is Anakadundubhe. Anakadundubhe literally means there are many kettle drums and bugles blowing in the sky. So when Vasudeva was born, there were so many demigods in the sky that started blowing bugles and playing on kettle drums. And there was a tumultuous sound, this auspicious sound in the sky, that a great personality is born. And because this tremendous sound was heard in the sky, Vasudeva was also called Anakadundubhe. So this Anakadundubhe Vasudeva was so glorious that if Vasudeva said something, even the wicked Kamsa had no doubt that Vasudeva would do exactly that. So Kamsa was pacified. He was satisfied that, yes, as long as you give me the children, you're right. I have no fear from Devaki herself. I have no fear from you, Vasudeva. I have no fear from Devaki. So I don't need to kill her as long as I get the children. And again, after about a year or so, the first child was born. His name was Kirtiman, and he was given to Vasudeva. And Vasudeva, because he was honest, he went and presented the child to Kamsa. And Kamsa was very astonished. And he said, this is the way the great sadhus are behaving. They're always true to their word. And he's very pleased. And he says, thank you for keeping your word, but I have no fear from the first child. I only have a fear from the eighth child. So you can take him back. But Vasudeva was not fully pacified because he knew that the demons or wicked people, you can never trust them. They may say something today and they may change their mind tomorrow. So he was still very cautious. He wasn't relieved at all. He was still thinking anything might happen. And our most wonderful Narada Muni, he comes to Kamsa and Narada Muni wants to accelerate the appearance of Krishna. And again, we won't get into that story, but essentially Narada Muni convinces Kamsa that any of the children can be the 8 children, depending on how you count. Right? So if you count from last to first, the first child could be the 8th, or any of the children could be the 8th one that's come, depending on how you count. And so he gives them lots of arguments, and he also tells them that you were Kalanemi in your previous birth, and you were killed by Vishnu. The same Vishnu is going to come to kill you. As a result, Kamsa starts, immediately goes, he arrests Devaki Vasudeva, binds them in chains. He also arrests his own father, Ugrasen, and he kills the first baby. And every year he kills a baby that's born. And in this way, he kills 6 children of Devaki. So the Bhagavatam explains, Srila Prabhupada also writes in the purport, also writes in the Krishna book about this, that the story is not specifically in the Bhagavatam, but it's in the other Vaishnava literatures that Jiva Goswami and other acharyas have written. that these 6 children of Devaki, the Shat Garbhas, are really the sons of Marichi. And they were cursed one time by Brahma that they be born as demons for 3 birds. And one of their birds as demons, they get cursed by Hiranyakashipu that they be killed by their own father Kalanemi. So Hiranyakashipu curses them that in your next birth, you'll be born and your own father Kalanemi will kill you. He'll be born as Kamsa and kill you. So these 6 sons of Devaki who are killed by Kamsa are essentially these rishis, great rishis, who are undergoing this curse, and they want to get killed as quickly as possible if they can go back and take their rightful place as rishis. So they get killed by Kamsa. The Acharyas also comment metaphorically that the Devaki represents bhakti, and Kamsa represents fear of material nature, and Vasudeva is the jiva trying to protect the new formed bhakti in our heart from material nature. And these 6 Shat Garbhas, the 6 children of Devaki, represent the 6 anarthas of anger, pride, envy, illusion, lust, and greed. Kama, Krodha, Moha, Lobha, Matsarya. One more, anyway. So pride, anger, greed, envy, illusion, and lust. And so the Acharyas tell us that unless we can kill these anarthas in our heart, we cannot prepare our heart for the appearance of Lord Shri Krishna. So as we get ready for Janmashtami, as we get ready for welcoming the Supreme Lord in our hearts, our focus really has to be, how do I get rid of these anarthas in my heart? And the process that Lord Chaitanya has given us so wonderfully of Cheto Darpana Marjanam, Bhavamaha Davagni Nirvapanam, Shreya Kairav Chandrika Vitaranam, Vidyavado Jivanam, Anandam Buddhivardhanam, Prativadam Purnamrta Swadanam, Sarvatma Stapanam Param Vijayate, Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. By chanting the holy name of the Lord, we can cleanse the mirror of our heart from the dust that's been accumulated for lifetimes. And then in the text, the third text, he tells us how we can chant. Trinadapi Sunichena Taro Riva Shahasnina Amanina Manadena Kirtani Sadahari. By simply being humble and tolerant, we can chant the holy name and thus purify our consciousness to be able to clear our heart of the anarthas and then welcome the Supreme Lord into our heart on Janmashtami. So thank you very much. There's a few minutes for questions. We can do questions. Dronacharya Prabhu?
So if anyone has questions. So if anyone has questions, you can hit your raise hand button. Ananda Vilas Prabhu, very, very nice class. I really appreciated all of your insights on, the different pastimes leading up to Krishna's birth and sharing of Kamsa and how he, went from being the loving brother to suddenly taking the turn as a demon. I really appreciated that you compared that also to Parikshit Maharaj and showing the difference between a Vaishnava devotee and a demon and how they would handle a similar situation. I think that was a really nice contrast to see those two pastimes side by side like that. So thank you so much for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Kanvatna. Prabhuji, at the last you mentioned like Devaki represents bhakti, Kamsa represents material desires. Vasudev, I did not able to catch up what Vasudev refers to.
Vasudeva represents the living entity trying to protect bhakti from the fear of material life. Yeah. So again, we should not confuse the analogy to mean that these are allegorical. These are not allegories. Mm-hmm. What I mean by that is, it doesn't mean that these are just examples given to us to understand a point. So Vasudeva, Devaki, Kamsa, they're all personalities. They're actual personalities who exist eternally. But the Acharyas also give us the allegorical understanding from these pastimes so we can understand deeper how we can apply some of these teachings in our life. So I hope I'm making that very clear, because in our Shastras, there are some stories that are purely allegorical. Right? So like Narada Muni gives the story of Maharaj Puranjan. Puranjan literally means, Pura means city, the city of 9 gates. So he rules the city of 9 gates. So he's actually giving an allegorical story that the city of 9 gates is nothing but the body. And the ruler of the city of 9 gates is just the jiva. So he gives a story that just is a complete allegorical story about how the king is completely attached to his own body and so on. So rather than give a story that directly points at a person, he gives an allegorical story. But in this case, this is not an allegorical story. It's just a metaphor that the acharyas provide us so we can get a deeper understanding about the pastime. So this is a difference between an allegorical story and an actual pastime where we can derive deeper meaning from that pastime.
Yeah, Prabhuji. So, yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. And the 6 sons represents the anartha. I mean, they were rishi. Being rishi also can be represented as anartha. Just I'm wondering. I mean, so if you can clarify. So if they were rishi, but because if they could be demon, so that could be represented as anartha. So trying to understand, Prabhuji.
Yeah, so the point again here is the allegorical understanding. So there is, the personalities are separate from the allegory. Right? So let's not confuse the personalities with, it does not mean that the six sons of Marichi were actually personifications of lust or anger and so on. That is not the point here. The point is that what we're trying to understand is that until we have these 6 anarthas in our heart, we are unable to welcome the Lord in our heart. So similarly, in the pastime of the Lord, when the 6 sons of Devaki were killed, only then Lord Baladev then appeared in the heart and the womb of Devaki to get the situation, the environment ready for the Lord to appear. So until the anarthas are present in our heart, it is not possible to make it a suitable dwelling place for the Lord to appear. And that is the understanding there.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Ananda Vilas Prabhu. I have a follow-up to that question there. Recently in Srimad Bhagavatam class here in Philadelphia, we studied this because we're in the 10th canto, the beginning of the 10th canto, and this is mentioned about the Sadgarbhas. And so my question that I haven't seemed to wrap my head around it, and I think it's an important point. I just haven't I guess reconciled it yet. Is that so? If Krishna, we need to clear ourselves of these sinful propensities, these anarthas, before Krishna will appear within our hearts, as the 6 sons were first killed prior to Krishna, Balaram, and Sri Krishna taking birth. How is it that these are supposed to be taken away? If the appearance of Krishna, like when we chant the holy name, these anarthas begin to go away. So Krishna appears and then they go away, as opposed to them going away and then Krishna appears. Is that, I don't know if my question makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. And so this actually is very nicely explained by Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And I'll just read one word from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that answers your question really. Rupa Goswami says, Ado Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sango Tata Bhajana Kriya Tato Anartha Nivritti Syat Tato Nishtha Ruchis Tata Ashaktis Tato Bhavas Tata Prema Bhu Jachanti Sadhakanam Ayam Prema Pradur Bhavet Bhavet Krama. So essentially, Rupa Goswami is talking about the process of sadhana, process of bhakti. where out of Shraddha, first there's a little faith. And once there's a little faith, then there can be sadhu sangha, or association of devotees. And when you're associating with devotees, then the only thing that to do is bhajana kriya, hearing, chanting the names of the Lord, Krishna Katha. There are two types of Krishna Katha, Prabhupada says. One is Krishna Katha about Krishna, like we're doing today, or Krishna Katha of words spoken by Krishna, which is the Bhagavad Gita. So both are Krishna Katha. So by having initial faith, Shraddha, we can do sadhu sangha. When we do sadhu sangha, there's bhajana kriya. And in this bhajana kriya, then anartha nivritti starts. Anartha nivritti syat. So Krishna is not some kind of calculating personality. He's more eager to give us his love than we are eager to receive it. Ye yatham mam prapadyante tam satayam bhajamyaham. So he's more eager to reciprocate with us than we can ever be to reciprocate with him. So as soon as we start showing some inclination to hear and chant about the glory of the Lord, he starts reciprocating with us. So the point that only if all the anarthas are completely eradicated from our heart can we have any connection with the Lord is not the point. The point is, the moment we start showing some inclination to associate with the Lord, he immediately, more than the steps that we take, starts taking steps towards us. So when the anartha nivritti starts happening, then we start having some taste for the Lord. You get nishtha. Next step is nishtha, which is firm faith. The difference between shraddha and nishtha is shraddha may be shaken if things are not favorable, but nishtha is not shaken. Like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prays, that life after life, you're my master. No matter you embrace me or kick me away, does not matter. I'm completely sold out to you. And that's the stage of nishtha. Then we start having ruchi, which is pure advanced taste of hearing and chanting the holy name. So your specific question, Ramacharya Prabhu, is really that it's not like all the anarthas have to be cleansed from our heart before we can have or feel the presence of a Lord in our heart. The moment we start taking the initial steps of Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti happens. And while Anartha Nivritti happens, we start already feeling the grace of the Lord in our heart. Srila Prabhupada gives the example of a person suffering from jaundice. He speaks of that example many times. That initially, when a person has jaundice, and the medicine or remedy for that is to eat sugar candy or drink sugarcane juice, it feels bitter because there's bile in our tongue, there's bile in our system. Even a sweet thing like sugar candy feels bitter. But slowly, as the disease goes away, the bitterness of the sugar candy goes away because the sugar candy is inherently not bitter, it's actually sweet. And we start slowly feeling the sweetness. So it's not like it's bitter to a point and all of a sudden it's sweet. The transformation happens over time. Like just like when you are unwell and you take medicine, the process of getting better happens over time. And then until you're fully better. So it's not like you're totally sick until day 7 and then day 8, you're completely fine. So it happens over time. Just like eating, the process of eating. If you're very hungry and a plate full of Mahaprasadam is placed before you, as you start eating, you're satisfied, your hunger gets satisfied. It happens over time, gradually. So similarly, the process of bhakti also happens gradually over time. And while it is true that in order to be fully in prema of the Lord, we cannot have anarthas in our heart. But even in the kanishta and the madhyama stage of being devotees, as we work on anartha nivritti, we can still start feeling the grace of the Lord, the presence of the Lord. By the mercy of the Guru, the mercy of Krishna, we start experiencing the presence of Krishna in our heart. Does that help you, Ramacharya Prabhu?
That does. Is very clear. Thank you, Ananda Vilas Prabhu.
Prabhu, this is Vatsala, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. You were comparing this with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu hugging this devotee, Brahmana, who cannot read and write, and who was looking at the Bhagavad Gita upside down, and he was just having tears in his eyes. How is that related to what we are reading now? I couldn't correlate between the two, what we are discussing now on this visit of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with the Brahmana and telling him, you are more than a devotee than anybody else. So could you elaborate on that, please? Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay. So the point I was making was really from the perspective of understanding what the position of a charioteer is. So I wanted to emphasize the point that when Kamsa took the position of a charioteer for Devaki, he was actually taking a humble position. But in spite of taking a humble position, his mind changed in just an instant. The moment he heard that the eighth born child of Devaki would kill him, he instantly forgot all his humility. So that was the point I was trying to make. And in that point, I spoke about how the Lord takes a humble position to serve his devotees. So that was just the point. And then as I spoke about that, I remembered the incident that how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and this South Indian Brahmana, he relished the fact that the Lord was taking the humble position, and that brought tears to his eyes. So that was more in that context of understanding the humility that taking the position of a charioteer represents.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
All right.
Any final questions before we conclude?
That's about it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Ananda Vilas.
Hare Krishna.
I hope on a personal note, we want to wish you and your family a happy Janmashtami and
Thank
Vyasa
you.
Puja.
Hare Krishna.
How's everybody on your side? Everybody's doing well during
Yes,
this pandemic?
our Gitanagari farm, we're still not open for visitors, but Damodar are happy and they're gracing us all and blessing us all. We're hoping soon that we'll be able to accept visitors. Since it's a farm community, we don't have the manpower to allow visitors to track them and all that. So it's open only for the community, and we have the pujaris coming and doing seva. We're not open to visitors yet, but we're hoping that things get better and we're able to open up for visitors in the next few weeks.
Good.
Hare Krishna Ananda Vilas, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Sudevi Mataji.
Do you go on Sunday for
Yes.
your seva? No.
Yes, I go every Sunday. Yes.
Oh, good, Prabhu. Thank you. Nice to hear your class. Very wonderful. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. for wonderful-
Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.
A couple quick announcements I want to make to the Philadelphia community as we approach Sri Krishna Janmashtami. We're definitely going to, this is going to be a year like no other in celebrating Janmashtami. Throughout the year, we're always so used to coming together for different festivals, Sri Krishna Janmashtami being the biggest one, and then the next day, the appearance day of Srila Prabhupada. The temple is open on Janmashtami, but we're going to have to be careful, and we're going to have to be mindful. Starting at 10 a.m., the temple will be open for darshan all day long, all the way to midnight. We have two programs that we have set up, one in the afternoon and one in the evening. We did this in order to spread out the crowd. We understood that there may be people that may want to come at less crowded times, and we felt that the afternoon could accommodate that. So we're actually doing starting at 11:30. There'll be a program, starting at 11 to 1:45, there'll be a program, and there'll be an Abhishek at 11:30 to 12:30. There'll be a class, there'll be kirtan. So that will be taking place in the afternoon, and then in the evening from 6:30 to midnight, ending with the Maha Arati at midnight. There'll be another program. In order to try to organize this a little better, because we're limited with the number of people that we can have in the temple room, we sent out yesterday in our newsletter. If you haven't opened it, please make sure you open it. There is a RSVP/registration way through Eventbrite, and it just takes a minute. All you have to do is go there and select the time that you and your family would like to come. And that way we can kind of lock certain things in. If everybody shows up at the same time and says, I want to come for the kirtan, the reality is we're not going to be able to accommodate people, unfortunately. But if people organize themselves in that way, we can at least do a little, we can make an effort to do a little better to keep things safe, so properly social distance, and make the festival enjoyable for everybody. The festival, both afternoon and evening, will be broadcast over YouTube and Facebook Live. So this YouTube channel, our Philadelphia YouTube channel, it will not be broadcast over Zoom. We felt that Zoom isn't really the best platform for broadcasting a festival, and it'll be easy for us if we just kind of do it over these two platforms of YouTube and Facebook Live. So if you're listening from home, the Zoom channel, it may be used for other things, such as, Krishna book reading. More information will come on that, but the temple festivals will be broadcast over YouTube and Facebook Live. Anybody that is interested in contributing to the festival, whether sponsoring the feast, the flower decorations, the midnight artik, performing abhishek, those are still available. You can, if you're going to be stopping by the temple this evening, you can stop by the front desk. If not, you can reach out to, I'll give you the number, 267-968-6825. That is Sita Mataji's phone number. She's taking sponsorships, as well as if you go online to www.iskconofphiladelphia.com, you can donate there as well. So once in a year opportunity to bathe Shri Arati and Krishna on their appearance day. So we encourage all the devotees to please, participate in that abhishek. The last thing I'll say is that if you want to participate in the abhishek but aren't able to come to the temple, we understand that due to the pandemic, circumstances are such where people may be advised not to come out, or you just don't feel comfortable and you'd rather stay at home. That is perfectly fine. What we've set up is a by proxy method for abhishek, where on your family's behalf, the abhishek will take place from one of the local Brahmins. And at the time of the abhishek, your family's names will be offered individually to the Lord during the abhishek. So if you're unable to physically attend, please don't let that discourage you. We wish everybody a happy Janmashtami, whether you're celebrating at home or with us here at the temple. We're all together, we're all connected because Krishna is in the center of our lives. The temple will be filled with kirtans and classes throughout the day. So please tune in and participate wherever you are. If you do have any questions, please reach out. I'll stay on for a few minutes to answer any questions that you may have. But we look forward to seeing everybody, at these wonderful times to glorify and deepen our devotion to Krishna.
Drona Prabhu.
Yes.
Vatsala. Prabhu, you are allowed to choose only one slot, either in the morning or afternoon. How does that work? If you are bringing some items, Chapan Bhog items, and if I'm doing puja at my home, and some reason, if I'm not able to come in there, but even though I might have chosen to, but it's some reason I cannot make it in the morning, can I come in the evening slot?
We just ask you to sign up because I mean, you just put yourself in on the temple side of things. You know, we're told by the government, this isn't something that I take pleasure in at all. We're told by the government and medical officials, do not have too many people together, because that only increases the risk of. And then if we all understand that and we all try to act according to that understanding, then I think we're going to be okay. And that's the spirit behind trying to get people to reserve spots. So if something happens where you thought you could come in the morning, but that you couldn't, and you rather come in the afternoon, then sign up for the evening. You know, go ahead. I don't think there's limitations that you can only do one time. I don't think that there's limitations. At the same time, we just ask the devotees, specifically the devotees who know this, you know, who are who serve at the temple, who help make the temple a wonderful place. Let's be patient. Let's be understanding. Let's not push our way to the front. Let's take a position of understanding. Krishna sees our actions. We have a lot of guests that come that night. Maybe some people didn't sign up. Maybe we signed up for five hours for the whole program. And if we see that it's maybe getting a little crowded, maybe we step out for a half hour or so and let somebody else come in. So I don't think there's any limitation on how long you can sign up. We just ask that you sign up. But at the same time, let's also be mindful of people that are coming. We want to make it enjoyable for everybody.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, Mataji.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah. And again, I'll stay on for a couple more minutes in case anybody has any questions about this. There will be outdoor seating as well for people, you know, if they want to sit outside, chant japa. You know, the seating will be socially distanced apart.
So are you still allowing only 25 people per whatever the occupancy capacity is? You know, you were allowing only 25 people at a time in the temple?
In the temple, yeah. In the temple room. In the temple room.
It's very difficult. They are used to coming in large numbers. It's very difficult. It's going to be a challenge.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And that's why I'm asking you for your patience.
We are loving Krishna till the last minute. So it's going to be very, very tough for everybody.
Yeah.
So I guess
so,
we have to do our best.
So specifically the 12 o'clock arti is being reserved for those that, for the sponsors and those that, you know, the Kailash program. It's first offered to them, so you'll see some of those spots on the Eventbrite are blocked out for the sponsors. So that's the understanding behind that. But we're going to see how it goes. We're going to have to be flexible. We're going to have to adapt to the situation, but that's the plan for right now. And again, we just ask for everybody's cooperation and understanding. We're going to try to make it go as smoothly as possible. And let's I
think we have to live up to the challenge. Krishna will provide something. Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
So far it's been very nice. We've had devotees come today to make garlands at the temple. Everybody was distanced apart. Everybody had their masks on. That's another thing. Don't forget to bring your mask. You won't be allowed in if you don't have a mask. So all those things. There. Any other questions?
No, I guess that's about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And I'll be around at the temple this evening. If you don't see me, just you can ask your questions at the front desk, or if you'd like to make a contribution towards Janmashtami, you know, you can do so at the front desk as well. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.